All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. This is actually webinar number 10, I believe, of 16 that we're doing. And this webinar series is featuring all approved MICA project approvals from the first copper proposals. And today we're going to be featuring Cleantech Copper with Greg Hanna, who will be speaking to us about their innovative Cleantech Copper Extraction Process, which requires almost zero energy to produce high purity copper. And so we'll be jumping into the presentation in a moment. But before we jump into it, I want to let you know that we do have 16 approved projects, and we'll be doing a webinar for each of these ones. So if there's any of these that are interesting to you, do tune into our YouTube channel, get a glimpse of those technologies. We do have our second call for proposals open right now. So it's open from December 1, 2022, and closing on January 18, 2023. And if you can just take a picture of the item on your screen here, you'll be able to actually access a call for proposal process. So I want to hand over the presentation to Greg, who's going to do a presentation on Destiny's Copper's technology. And I'm going to just hold your screen up. Greg, give me a second.
Thanks so much, Charles. This is really exciting that we could be here today. And thank you for approving our project. We've been really excited, and it's a great endorsement from the mining industry who validated it. And so let's get into it.
Awesome. Go ahead.
What Destiny does is a Cleantech Copper Production Extraction System. And we'll just get access here in a second. It all began at Brock University, and that was 8 years ago, where we set up the labs, and we started doing our early research there, where we came across Professor Ian Brindell, who spent 40 years in chemistry research. So he was a great asset to the company and helped us develop the early chemistry. You can see some of the pictures. What we do is we drop metal into a copper solution with various additives, and it grows a crystal that's very loosely adhered. We'll talk more about that as we get into it. So we can actually produce high purity copper from both rock ore, copper ores, leach it and turn it into copper, or from old tailings solutions. So we can therefore go and clean up old tailings. What is the problem that we're trying to solve? As the world makes its quantum shift to clean energy, electrification, and the circular economy, ever increasing quantities of copper will be required. However, up until now, there hasn't been an environmentally sound technology to produce this critical metal. There aren't nearly enough new copper mines being built, and tailings dams failures have catastrophic environmental impacts. Our small scalable solution, Destiny Copper, spent, it's now 8 years developing the world's first Cleantech copper extraction process that requires almost no energy to produce high purity copper crystals greater than 99%. Simplistically, chemistry is replacing energy. Greenhouse gas emissions are dramatically reduced when compared to the incumbent copper extraction technologies of both SXEW and smelting. This environmental benefit is further amplified when Destiny Copper technology is used to extract copper from old mine tailings, as we just mentioned. We all know the global copper market is huge, 220 billion annually. We'll run through this in our video. We've taken out various patents, both in the US as well as globally via Canada. So management team, our chemistry team headed up by Prof. Ian Brindell. We've done industrial scale testing. This shows you a little bit of our progress. So from lab scale, we moved up to bench scale over the last several years, garage scale. An experimental pilot plant was built in the Hamilton Port, at the Hamilton Port Authority. And recently up in Quebec, we've built a full-scale experimental pilot plant. As mentioned, we've partnered with Dundee. Some of the drawings of the pilot plant. I don't need to convince anyone. Everyone knows we need more copper, but just a quote from Laurier Carbonet, head of metals and mining at HSBC, we're turning down lots of stuff. Being green is a precondition for lending. It's front and center. We know wind and solar are taking 12 times the amount of copper when compared to the current power generation technologies. Electric vehicles, 4 times the amount of copper. The graph is via Bloomberg put this out, and you can see up to 2040 and beyond, the graph is pretty much a hockey stick. Greenhouse gas emissions, we've compared it to using data from the University of Chile, both on smelter and SXEW. Destiny Copper is significantly reducing greenhouse gases in extracting a high purity product. We've got all sorts of Canadian government supports in various different programs, and now we're so thankful to have MICA in addition to that. To give you a little bit of background, I'll run you through our video, which I think tells the story really well.
Several years ago, some South African guys came to talk to me about a project that they were working on. The aspects of chemistry that we developed as a consequence of this work is different and novel, and it hasn't been done before. And I've got to say, it works. It really, really works.
As you may know, the global demand for copper is extremely high. Here at Destiny Copper, we have invented a brand new green tech technology to make copper.
Traditionally, copper has been extracted using 2 processes, smelting and SXEW, solvent extraction electrowinning.
Both of these methods are energy intensive, expensive, inefficient, and extremely bad for the environment.
We think it's time for change. We've invented a cleaner, greener, cheaper way of extracting copper.
Growing up in South Africa, I remember very clearly sitting in high school chemistry class. We'd take a beaker of copper sulfate and we'd take an iron nail and we'd put it inside, and slowly the copper would really tightly adhere to that iron nail. Now, it's that copper making process that becomes extremely expensive when you take that up to large industrial scale.
Using our proprietary technology, we've invented a brand new way to extract high purity copper. This is a game changer. With our technology, the copper just slides off the iron. The chemistry does the heavy lifting, so our process uses significantly less energy than traditional methods.
When we discovered this process, we thought to ourselves, wow, this is like magic. Is this even real? Is it possible? So we took it to an analytical chemist at Brock University.
Hello, my name's Ian Brindle. I'm a Professor Emeritus at Brock University. I have a Doctor of Science from the University of Manchester Institute of Science and Technology. I'm a Fellow of the Royal Society of Chemistry. I've published over 100 papers and chapters in books and have 4 patents to my name, and I'm kind to dogs. So if anybody knows chemistry, I know chemistry. I looked at this process. It looked interesting. It looked quite different from what I'd seen before. After a number of days and quite a bit of searching in the literature, I ended up looking at what happens when you put this into the lab. So it was when we got to the lab that we got to see how things changed, and none of this is in the literature. This is all new stuff that we're doing. Does it work? You bet it works. And it works to produce magnificent looking copper.
In 2021, we tested our process in a small experimental plant. The results were even better than we expected.
I remember the first time we harvested pure, shiny copper crystals falling like meat from a bone. Then we knew we were onto something big.
So next, we built a scale-up pilot plant in Quebec. That's where we're filming today. The question was, would it work on a larger scale? The simple answer is yes, it works. It's a game changer.
The process starts by pumping the copper solution into mixing tanks. And this is where Destiny's proprietary technology comes into play. From there, it is pumped into the reactor along with recycled iron. the chemical reaction produces a high-quality copper crystal. And remember those tailings dams we talked about earlier? They're toxic, they're dangerous, sometimes they break, and they're costing companies millions of dollars in insurance every year. Using our new process, we can go back to these tailing dams and extract more copper, and in some cases, we can clean it so well that you can drink the water.
Think about that. We're not even mining. We're a cleanup company that's creating copper.
So now our next step is to build a demo plant, which is 20 times the size of this pilot plant. We're inviting investors like you to join us as we scale up our technology for the future.
We already have copper traders that are willing to buy as much copper as we can produce. The demand is there.
There are a lot of technical details that we'd love to share with you that we can't get into in this video. But if you'd like more information about who we are, what we do, and what we're about, please visit destinycopper.com.
Thanks so much, Charles.
Right. All right. I love that video. That video always makes it so much easier to understand exactly, your value proposition. So Greg, I think now we're jumping into the question period, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess my first question is, your technology is sort of as you've envisioned it. What is the estimated time frame to deploy this technology once you identify, a good fit for the technology?
That's a great question. So what we're going to do is we built the pilot plant, we've tested it, early piloting is showing very high purity copper with limited energy, as we've discussed. And now the plan is to go ahead and build the scale-up demonstration plant. Within the next 2 years, we'll be actually in production of being able to roll these plants out at within a 6-month period from the completion of the demonstration plant. So it's about a 2.5 year from where we are now, potentially shorter as well. We could shorten that somewhat, but conservatively, I would say within the next 2.5 years.
Gotcha. And my next question, Greg, is that, and this is the question I get asked often by mining companies. So when you identify a mineral processing facility or even a mining company themselves, is there someone at the mining company or some position or role that is best aligned with you being able to talk to that person first at a mining company? And I guess, the question, I asked the question because some people will say, it's somebody in the C-suite or someone in operations, but maybe just paint a picture on, who is it that you best want to speak to in a mining operation?
Yeah, that's interesting. I would say across the board, we need buy-in. So we would need potentially the mine manager at the actual mine, the tailings manager at the actual mine, and then higher up, we probably need some C-suite go ahead and involvement in terms of moving the project forward. But we would need it local buy-in from the tailings manager. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, and my next question is to do with people who like to say, show me, right? Show me, what the technology looks like, or show me a demonstration. If somebody was sort of asked the question that way, how would you direct that person to be able to see something tangible about your technology?
Okay, so we've currently, as discussed, we've got the pilot plant up in Quebec. What we did is we took 50,000 liters of waste material from a gold mine in Chile. So it's a real product from a real gold mine in Chile. It was shipped across to Canada. And at our pilot plant, we set up a process where we put it through the pilot plant. We extracted high purity copper. They had taken the gold out, and it essentially was their waste stream. We then extracted the copper and then cleaned that solution to such a degree that we could reuse it in the system. And copper is often found in dry climates like Arizona or Chile, where recycling of water is great. And in most climates, it's becoming more and more front and center.
Thank you for that. All right, so let's jump into another different question now for you. So Greg, what do you think is in store for the copper price and this demand in the next few decades? And the reason I ask the question is I just am hearing a lot of different perspectives. You know, copper price goes up, demand is very high, supply is low. So maybe just help us and maybe unpack it for us. You know, what do you think is in store for the copper price as this demand for the next few decades?
Yeah, so longer term, we just see the demand growing and growing from the likes of electric vehicles and all sorts of electric, solar and wind power generation. You look at what the CEO of Anglo American recently said is 60 new copper mines will be required by 2040 just to keep up with demand. And those are like $5 billion value copper mines, significant mines. It can take 15, 20 years to bring a new mine online. So there are going to have to be new ways of extracting copper. And we feel with being able to go back to those old tailings, we can extract, we can assist that process. But I just think over time, the copper price is going to go up. There just isn't enough being produced and the demand seems to be growing. Potentially over the next 2 years, we go into some form of recession. If you're taking a longer view, I think the copper price could quite easily double in the next decade.
Thank you for that. Thank you for bringing that clarity there. Again, which industries do you think will chiefly driving this demand for copper?
Electric vehicles, it's growing on it's such a tear. Every day you hear another announcement of another EV launching a multi-billion-dollar project, both in the US, in Canada, and internationally. And the likes of BYD in China and Tesla in the US and around the world. I should imagine the auto industry and the EV industry is going to take a big chunk of copper going forward.
Gotcha then. And Greg, in which jurisdictions do you think Destiny Copper will plan to first roll out this amazing technology?
So we're passionate Canadians. So we'll start in Canada. We then into the US, and we feel that the Arizona, Nevada, and the likes would be the next stop. But ultimately, Chile does produce the most copper in the world, so we'll definitely be in that market too. I was in Chile earlier this year at the World Copper Conference, and there are so many opportunities. We're currently in discussions with a couple of miners based down there as well.
Okay, thank you for that. And in terms of just maybe your rolling out plan for the technology, do you plan to sell the technology out, or do you plan to lease it out to people? Like, how do you plan to actually get the technology into various sites out there?
Our current model is to sell copper, so we'll partner with the mines. But down the line, as we grow in certain jurisdictions, we may consider licensing as well.
Okay, very good, very good. And maybe my second last question to you is, do you think Destiny Copper will maybe one day be in a position to buy its own mines, or even take ownership of some tailing storage facilities?
Absolutely. I think down the line that could be part of our model. For now, we wanted to focus on the next few years, focus heavily on the tech, get the technology into a place where it can be rolled out easily and smoothly. And as we grow, I think mining opportunities would come to us. Yeah.
Gotcha. And maybe my last question is around the larger mining houses. And Gregory, the question is, do you feel large mining companies are open to adopting specifically your technology or new technologies? And I'm speaking about this really sort of large tier one operators that are in the copper side of the business.
I think traditionally big mining companies have been slow adopters, but I think the focus and many of the conferences I've been to recently, I think innovation is starting to come in. And I understand if you spent hundreds of millions implementing a certain technology to change it doesn't come easily. But in a number of the conferences recently, the big mining houses have had representation of more entrepreneurial, more innovative thinking executives attending, stating that they would be keen to start looking at new, cleaner technologies. We all got to work together to clean up the environment, and I think they see we need these metals, we need these critical metals, but we need them in a cleaner way. And I think we've got a small part to play in changing the industry. Yeah.
Very good. Well, Greg, look, we come to the end of our time here together, but I wanted to thank you again for this presentation. I think definitely clean technologies, especially on the front end, are so important. I always tell people that, yes, you can have a zero emissions vehicle, but if all the metals to bring you a zero emissions vehicle were brought to you in not as a cleaner way, then it really is not a zero emissions vehicle now, is it? So thank you so much for advancing this technology, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you again in the near future.
Thanks once again, Charles, and to your whole team at MICA as well. Thank you.
Awesome.